the histogram. So let's really address that part of it. These little benchmarks here are really important, and how you interpret them really kind of dictate whether or not you get the answer correct. And so so you got to be really careful about it. Right? That 54 is the start of the first interval. The 56 is the start of the second interval. 58 is the start of the third interval, and so on. Right? So that first interval is not actually going from 54 to 56, as many might think. It's going to from 54 to some number less than 56. I'm gonna take a meter stick and.
Like a beating stick?
Yeah. No. I'm gonna either tape it or I was looking for my double-sided tape. I can't find it. But once I do, I'm gonna put it on the board here, and we'll do some data collection in here. So.
Hashtag on the shorts in class.
Well, actually, I do need to pay off that promise from way back in September of, hey, what's that basketball hoop for?
Oh, bet.
So this will come into play with that. So we'll take some time and do something related to that. All right. So it should be interesting. All right. I don't want to spoil it yet. Anyway, but what we're dealing with is the idea that we're not just working with integer values when it comes to histograms. All right. When you're dealing with the actual number of students, sure, whole number values are the only appropriate values, right? And negatives don't make sense in that case. But when you're talking about a height, yeah, you could be 74 3/4 inches, all right? You could be 74 and like 15/16 inches, all right? Maybe you want to go over to the metric scale, in which case you're something. I don't know. I can't do the conversion very quickly. I know it's a little bit more than 2 meters, all right? But the idea here is that you're falling just short of 56 inches, all right? Whether it's a smidge or an entire inch, you know that you're not quite getting there. That's what this means, all right? So when you start counting up, you have to keep that in mind. Now, in terms of counting up the number of people in the entire fencing club, that's easy because you're just counting the heights of each bar, all right? So I shouldn't have zoomed out. So just go across if you want. 1, 2, 2, 2, 4, 4, 2, 1. Get a running sum. 20. 18.
18. That's embarrassing.
All right. Greater than or equal to 66 inches. All right. For that, you only hit the 66 inch once you get to this category. So you're talking about these 3 bars. All right. If you didn't follow this idea, you might have thought the 66 fell in the category prior, and you'll get 4 more than what you ought to get. All right. So we should get a total of 7. So how many students?
7.
Total of 7. What percentage of the students have a height greater than or equal to 60 inches, but less than 66 inches? All right, so greater than 60, less than 66. So it's total 8 people. 8 out of 18. It's a percentage, so we have to do a quick conversion. 44. All right, so we're looking at approximately 44, I'll say 0.4%. All right. When it comes to creating a histogram, you did some practice with this. When it comes to creating a histogram, you're really on the hook for a lot of little details. Right? Marking it up the way I just did, that's not necessary, that's only for your benefit. But you do need to label your axes, horizontal, vertical axis. You do need to establish a scale for your horizontal and vertical axis, and you do need to title your graph. All right, if any of that's missing, it's going to cost you. All right, it won't cost you a ton, but it'll cost you some.
Is there a last unit?
Is there a last one?
Hey.
Oh,
It's like 75 pages long.
Yeah, we're already like 1/7 of the way through. 12.5% roughly.
Oh my God, 70.
Let's see.
71 pages long.
Wait, are we gonna have like one big test?
Yeah, but it's not gonna be hard.
Okay.
All right. So in your calculators, there's a function that'll build a box plot for you. All right.
Oh, really?
I'm gonna do it.
What?
I'm gonna do it on my new calculator, but I'm also gonna do it on the old school one because again, some of the features do not match up precisely. So until we get there.
No, thank you.
But I did learn a new skill yesterday when I was at a conference. Fun fact, like I've only missed one day this year because I was sick. Every other day that I've missed is because I was in a conference of some kind. It's crazy. But rewarding because I've learned a lot of things. And one of the things I learned yesterday was how to lock out functions on iPads. So like I can put you in an app and then make it so that even if you hit the home button, turn the iPad on and off, or off and on, sorry, you would still stay in that app. So that opens up like pathways. Like I can now allow you to take tests with
No, I don't
iPads.
want to do that.
Yeah, no.
I like writing stuff.
But
Unless we had like Apple pencils, that would be cool.
well, that's what I'm getting at.
Oh.
So that and an app like this might be something that you could use in a class within maybe even a year. Like it could be as soon as next year.
They should buy an Apple. That's kind of money.
I mean, we could budget
I'm
for
kind of
it.
into that. This is expensive.
Yeah, really. You should bring it up. I still want to get
I have.
Oh.
Hey, sisters.
Okay, so let's learn first how to type the data in the calculator. So first you're going to hit the stat key. It is right next to that X key, theta, N key.
Sorry, which one is this?
Stat.
Statistics.
If this is the statistics unit, so we're going to be living in the menu that says stat. This is your avenue to get every question right in this unit. All right. If you don't know where this button is because you're not paying attention, you are
Stat.
dunzo. Yeah, we can go with that.
Statistically done.
Oh, you didn't say that?
I said done for.
Oh, done for. Okay. Either way.
What do we click now?
I needed to clear out something first.
Oh, okay.
So you're hitting the stat key, and then you're going to hit edit. All right. So enter on the word edit.
I'd be like.
There are numbers in mine.
Yeah. So we need to clear those numbers out. So the way you clear those numbers out, do not hit delete. All right. So if you have some data in your L1, L2, whatever, go up onto the column heading. All right. So if your data is in L1, go right onto the
I
L1.
don't have an L1. I just started at L2.
Okay, go on to L2. Like right onto it. Hit second delete.
Second delete.
No.
Second.
Oh shoot.
Yeah. And then hit second one.
I'm hitting second mode. I don't want to mess anything up. Oh, shoot.
And then enter.
He's in Australia.
I'm currently traveling abroad and I just woke up.
We're like traveling abroad and I just woke up.
keep going on forever. YouTube channel.
You just stole my joke.
Then after that, you got
There are two people and two apologists.
Yeah, that's what I'm going through right now. All right, so if you have numbers, again, folks, if you have numbers in a column, even if you don't have numbers in a column, you're eventually going to, so you'll need to know this skill. All right, go up to the column heading. So if it's an L1, go right to the L1, hit clear, and then enter, and it'll wipe out the entire column. It'll wipe out all the data in the entire column.
Wipe off the internet.
Once again, folks, even if you don't have any data in your lists, eventually you will have data in your lists, in which case you'll need to know this skill.
How do you do it?
Clear.
Exactly. Go up to the column heading, hit clear, and then enter.
Oh,
All right, so we want to start typing our data in. So type in 16, then enter, 16, then enter, 18, then enter.
I think we went down.
16 enter, 16 enter.
18 enter. 18.
What? Oh, whoa.
20 enter. Wait a second.
What's going on? You didn't hear it.
What the hell?
God, no, he was a picture roll.
We're doing all these kind of
What numbers are you putting
The
in?
one on the sheet.
Oh.
Oh, I see. How'd you do that?
It's gonna take like 8.
Honestly, this is going to sound like I'm being a wise guy. I'm a genius.
Oh my god, no.
No, really.
No, I put
No,
one of the
seriously.
numbers in wrong. What do I do?
You start again.
I can't.
Wake up and try again.
What? Oh, I put one.
Alright, we're done. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Okay, I fixed it. How did I do it?
I finished.
But I don't have anybody like
Oh, I
Do you really go?
Oh, it worked.
Lucas, do you remember?
Wait, there's right.
Oh, alien.
So what do you do after you did the last one?
Henry.
Well, you wait patiently for me to tell you the next step. All right. So there's two things that we need to figure out here. One, what these numbers are, because these numbers correspond to the important values in a box plot. Then after that, it's up to you, but you might want to actually see what the calculator thinks the box plot ought to look like. All right, so I'm going to show you how to figure out those two things. All right, so what you're going to do is hit stat. Well, actually, scratch that. Hit second mode. Get out of there, because sometimes, depending on how you go about things, it might take what you're about to use for a computation and put it in a cell in the spreadsheet, and that's not a good thing. All right, so type in the data. So we did stat edit. Let me just jot this down. We typed in the data. It's a personal preference, but I gotta say it sucks the life out of me every single time I hear someone say data. It just kills me. I don't know why.
Data.
It's an appropriate way of saying it. It's just as correct as saying data, but it just bothers me. So,
No, if you look up data and
It's because Siri's a bot.
and you press like the sound, like you press like the little like thing to see how to say it, it says data.
It's a bot.
Well,
Cool.
so when do those things speak normally?
Can we have a vote? It's data.
oh, I've already voted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's data.
Yeah.
It's data.
Well, you thought that was a democracy?
I say data sometimes. I just like whatever comes out comes out.
Exactly.
It's like cringeworthy. It's like coupon. Ugh.
Oh, that is just unforgivable.
Yeah.
Wait, I say coupon.
I mean, like I said, it's like there's nothing wrong with it. It's perfectly fine. It's just I don't like it. So don't say it. All right, stat. So we've quit out. We're in the home screen. We have blank screen. Stat calc. Option 1. Stat
Stat calc.
calc. Option 1. And remember, we're not looking for the word option. It is the first option.
And he's like, wait, where's the option?
All right. Select option 1. You could either type the number 1 or hit enter, because it's the first option. It should bring you to a menu that looks like this. If it doesn't, it might bring you to your home screen, and it would say 1 bar stats on your home screen. So you're going to get one of those two displays. All right. If you're in the, they call this the stat wizard. If you're in the stat wizard, you're good to go. All right. So hit calculate.
Like that word.
All right. But if it says 1 bar stats, you have to tell the calculator where to find the data. All right, and that's in list 1, L1, which you get by hitting second 1. All right, if you look behind those numeric keys, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Right above that in blue, it's L1, L2, L3, all the way through L6. All right, so that's how you get your L's. That's how you identify your list. All right, either way, you're going to get what you need. All right, so right to calculate, hit enter. All right,
Wow.
now you look at this display here, and at first glance you might realize, well, there's that, but then there's also the fact that, oh wow, none of the words that are on the paper here are present on this list. But there is a little arrow that's pointing downward. It's not there by accident. It means if you hit the down arrow, there is more information to follow.
Oh my.
Min x is the minimum x value. In this case, x means age.
Goody book.
Q1 is the lower quartile, 24. MED stands for median, 32. Upper quartile, Q3, 40. And the maximum age. All right, so we have the min and the max. First and last value is 48. All right, so we have all those important values. Now all we have to do is plot them. All right, so what we do is we develop a numerical scale that'll actually create the plot or allow us to create the plot. And the calculator will do it for us. So I use the stat plot in the calculator as a checking tool to help us determine whether or not we actually did it right. All right, so I need a scale that's going to allow me to go from 16 to 48. So I'm going to go by tens, starting at 10. Okay. So I need to plot 16, which is going to be a little bit more than halfway between 10 and 20. I need to plot 24, which is a little less than halfway between 20 and 30. We're just estimating. I'm going to plot 32, which is a smidge more than 30. 40, which is right on 40. And 48, which is a little bit less than 50. All right. Now, the interesting thing is kind of liken this to sort of like a constellation, where you look up in the sky, up to the heavens, and you see like 3 stars, and you're like, oh, Leo. Somehow that's a lion. Okay. But there's only 3 stars. It's a triangle, but the book says it's a lion. All right. Well, these 5 dots are a box with whiskers if you look up into the heavens. All right. They're not a line. They're a box with whiskers. We call it a box plot because, as you know, Coop.
I don't know what just happened.
Oh
my god. I got it.
Bruh, every day.
I was just holding it up. Like, wow.
We call it a box plot because box and whisker sounds stupid.
Wait,
What do we used to call it? Like over in
it's called a box plot.
You did this in elementary school?
Didn't we?
No, we did it in
No.
6th grade.
Yo, okay,
I was 5.
I never understood it.
But we didn't have scientific calculators.
Yeah, we had those terrible.
So this is my min.
Like 3 numbers on.
Q1, median, Q3, and max. For some reason, the Regents wants you to label those. I don't know why. Minimum, Q1, median, Q3, and max. That's your box plot. What it does, what a box plot does is actually gives us a way of comparing multiple data sets. It's very, very useful. It doesn't seem like it would be very useful, but it is. Right? It's actually way more useful than a histogram, because if you needed to compare, let's say, the grades for all the students in a particular course, it's hard to do that with histograms, but it's very easy to do it with box plots, right? Because all you need to actually do is create a 5-number summary, that's what we call this, for each student. And every student would get a box plot, and how they stack up against one another would tell you a lot of information about the performance of the individuals, all right? But then we could also make a determination about things like probability, all right? Anytime I'm talking about percentages related to data sets, we're really getting into the concept of probability, which we'll explore more of in AP Stats in 3 years? Yeah. Well, you can take it after Algebra 2. So if you're doing, or Gap 2, either way, that would put you in senior year. All right, so, but yeah, the first unit of AP Stat is this unit. So if that's a course you're interested in taking, I know it's a long time away, you probably want to hang on to this packet more than anything else. What % of the data does the box part of the box plot capture? Well, it's going from the 25th percentile to the 75th percentile. So how many percentage points would be in that interval? 50. 50% of the data would be contained within the box. What percent of the data falls between the minimum value and Q1? 25. All right. So then you would know that the upper quartile, so from the Q3 to the max, that would be the other 25%. All right. But let me show you really quickly how you can get the actual graph on your calculator. All right. Your data's already in, so the hard part's already over. All right. So that's the good news. All right. So what I want you to do is go into your stat plot. The way you do that is by hitting second, followed by y equals. All right, right above it there, you see, there's a little stat plot. Second, y equals. Got a whole bunch of plots here, well, actually 3 of them. And then after that, you have a couple of commands. Options 4 and 5 are to turn all the plots off or turn all the plots on. All right, we don't really need that because we're just going to kind of live in plot 1. All right, so what I'm going to do is hit enter. You have the option to turn it off or on. It's already off. So hit enter on the word on. Hit the down arrow to get into the type. Now, which type do you suppose we might be interested in? The middle of the bottom row, or second. So hit the right arrow till you get to it. It's weird because if you're here on this scatter plot and you hit the down arrow, it takes you out of that category. So hit the right arrow till you get there. All right. Now, does anybody have an idea of what that other box plot looking thing might be?
No. Oh, it's like showing you that it keeps going on. I don't know.
That's a good thought. Like a kind of dot, dot, dot.
Oh, the outlier.
Boom. Boom. It's a box plot that removes the outliers for you. All right. So if a question were ever to ask you if there's any outliers in a data set, all you have to do is type your data in and go to that plot. And if you see any dots, then you know you have outliers. It does the math to figure out what the outliers are. All right. X list, the default settings are exactly what we want. X list is L1. Frequency is L2. All right. I'm sorry, frequency is L2. It would be if we had a frequency list. Then you're probably on the scatter plot still.
Oh yeah. Wait, no, I'm not. Do I have to enter that?
You have to enter on the box plot. It should say X list L1 frequency 1.
Or so?
All right. Now, you want to go into y equals. I have an equation there. I don't want it to interfere with my graph, so I'm going to get rid of that. Now, you might remember throughout this course, one of the hardest things about creating a graph is getting the graph to appear. You type in the equation and then you hit graph and nothing shows up because you don't have a good window. Well, let's hit zoom. You see all these different options here, right? Box, in, out, blah, 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 all that good stuff. But we also see that downward facing arrow. Tells us that there's more. Zoom in, out, maybe. Oh,
Zoom stat.
zoom stat. Wonder what that does. What it does is it makes the window that's appropriate for the data that you typed in. So hit enter on zoom stat.
Whoa.
First, you verify that that looks like what you put on paper.
That's so epic.
Why doesn't it work? That sucks. Love to do it.
Now this fancy new calculator doesn't seem to have a box plot, so it's a good thing I did it this way. All right, well, I'll have to investigate that anyway.
I got an error.
Okay, I'll look at it in a second. All right, one last thing. Let's say you only have the capacity right now to absorb one piece of information from today, aside from typing the data in. You can get the 5-number summary from the stat plot. All right, all you have to do is hit trace,
Just like that.
and then hit the left arrow, the right arrow. Not only does it tell you what the values are, but numerically, but it tells you what they are qualitatively. So it tells you that the minimum is 16. Hit the right arrow. Q1 is 24, and so on. All right. So this is one-stop shopping for a box plot because you don't have to do the other thing in order to get the information that you need. All right. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's unfortunate that this calculator that costs money doesn't have a
Money doesn't cost.
$499. $499.
Wait, are you? I was gonna say, like, why do that?
That would be brutal.
That'd be vile.
It makes a histogram.
Not very informative.
Not in this case. Doesn't really tell me.
Keep the same informative.
And this doesn't have a zoom feature because you have
I'm gonna stretch it.
fingers
There we go.
to do what you need it to do. So there's that. But so we're still living with the good old-fashioned calculator for a little while.
Look, I did it.
Yeah.